This is Our Vision for the Future.
Oh, did we start already? I'm sorry, Monsignor. I was just reading something. You know what it says? Camp for Boys of Diocese being established. This is April 18th, 1937. That's a long time ago. Did you remember anything of this?
I was just a little guy growing up back in the days of Camp Santa Teresita.
And you know what's great about Camp Teresita is we're going to talk about something so special. You know, on Vision for the Future, we talk about things that are going to happen in the future. We talk about youth ministry, vocations, school of ministry, catechetics, parish life coordination. But there are some dreams that actually become reality in our time, in our viewing. And Monsignor Griesbach is here to prove that his dream of having a beautiful youth conference center at St. Anthony Retreat that's going to be called Santa Teresita, it's going to all happen, huh, Monsignor?
Yeah, actually, it's not my dream. It's actually the dream of our diocese. And so I'm the lucky fellow who gets to shepherd that along. And so I've kind of come to talk a little bit about where we are today and what we hope to be able to accomplish in the very near future.
Before we talk about Santa Teresita, could you just give us a brief little thought about yourself and what goes on at St. Anthony Retreat, which is really important that people remember it's our beautiful diocesan retreat center?
Yes, our retreat center, St. Anthony Retreat Center, is really almost 50 years old now. It was begun in 1963 by the Franciscan community who wanted to provide a resource for the spiritual growth of our people in the Central Valley. About 9 years ago, in fact, at the beginning of this month of October, the 9th anniversary took place when the diocese purchased St. Anthony Retreat Center from the Franciscans. And part of the legacy was a plan that the Franciscans had to be able to build a youth center on property that was donated to them in order that there might be some special place for young people to come where they could have an encounter with God and grow in their faith.
Now, we want to talk a little bit about this name, Santa Teresita. We've got some pictures, we've got some real memories. Why don't you tell us why it's called Santa Teresita?
Well, Santa Teresita is Spanish for St. Therese. In 1930s, early 30s, the Diocese of Fresno happened to be, Monterey, Fresno actually, was being formed and fashioned at the very same time that a young French woman who died at 24 years old and who became a doctor of the church was being canonized in Rome. Bishop Scher at the time asked, would it be possible for our diocese to have St. Teresa as our diocesan patroness? Shortly after that, the diocese established a summer camp on the banks of Bass Lake. And so they named that summer camp after the patroness, this young woman who was very youthful herself and such a great person in the church. And so Camp Santa Teresita was formed and fashioned.
Let's look at some of these pictures briefly to show us just how special and how important it was for the diocese. Look at that.
So that's going back to more recent times, a more recent sign, but the camp lasted for about 40 years. And it took care of, providing a place for summer along the banks of the lake for all kinds of young people from our diocese, as well as gave jobs for seminarians and for people. Father Frank Walsh was the director of the youth camp, and we're going to see his picture come up in just a little bit. And he was the one who established the summer camp and served it for pretty much for all its years. As you see from those photos there, it was pretty rustic. It was a series of camps for kids to stay in, bunkhouses, and there was a large room there as well for their dining room and dining facilities. They had like an outdoor chapel where people would celebrate the Mass. And of course, there was all kinds of different activities, sports activities and water activities in the banks of the lake there. It was a place where people like my mom went when she was a little girl. My mom's 86 now and living in Tulare. She was actually a counselor at Camp Santa Teresita in the mid-40s. There's a picture of Father Waltz there, standing there before some of the camps, the dorm areas that were there. Well, my mom actually had a funny story in my family. She slid into third base while she was counselor there and broke her arm, so she ended up coming home in a cast from there. But there's a picture there of some of the kids, back in the 50s that go all the way back to our summer camp.
Now, one thing that's important is to think, how did it get to be? From where and when did the idea of building a new youth convention center start? And whom do we want to give a lot of thanks to?
Well, actually, when the camp closed in the 60s, actually the kitchen burned down and there was limited resources. And so at that particular moment in time, although the property would remain, the summer camp would close. And it was a period of about 40 years before the diocese began to consider how to go about, once again, reaching out to our young people in a place that would really be a delight to them and would be able to meet their needs. And so that's when a committee was put together in order to start planning this. But maybe backing up just a little bit, when the Franciscans in the year 2000 were talking with a neighbor, Mrs. Ollie Craig, she was willing to donate what amounted to 17 acres of property for a youth center. And that became part of the mission of the Franciscans to follow through on that. 2 years later, however, for a lot of different reasons, they ended up selling the property. And Bishop John talked with Ollie, and he said he would be more than happy to fulfill that dream that the Franciscans and Ollie had. And so we put together a committee at that moment in time to begin making plans. And it took us about 2.5 years to come up with plans for that.
Could you tell us about some of the planning, Monsignor, that went into this idea of the Santa Teresita Youth Conference Center?
Well, one of the things that we really asked ourselves is what were the needs of the young people, and how could we be able to provide for the needs of our youth in our current period of time. And so we put together a committee that had youth ministry folks, priests and religious, people involved in hotel industry, summer camp folks. We put together quite a remarkable group, along with some contractors and some engineers, to begin to talk about how to utilize the land that was given for the sake of building that. And we ended up coming up with some ideas for buildings and some values around them that we wanted to talk about. And that led to a site plan, an initial site plan. The site plan that we first established, however, would be remodeled several times as we looked at the land and as we considered what we could do on that would be most appropriate and leave the least impact. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but why don't we talk about the values that drove the whole planning process?
I think you have 6 that you really wanted to talk about, so I'll name them off so we can hear them, and then we're going to have you walk us through some visuals that are going to show how you're doing them. Because right now, this is all going on up at St. Anthony's. Safety and security of the youth center students and staff is first. We need to be safe and secure. Then you want maximum versatility and multiple use of all the facilities. Obviously, maximum efficiency with low maintenance. We want this thing to endure at little expense. A fourth principle is the respect and care for the natural environment that you are blessed with up there. Then there's this preservation of the adult retreat center ambiance and the environment separate from the youth convention center. And finally, strict adherence to the budget. So let's look at some pictures, Monsignor, that you might walk us through to show how any of these are being fleshed out. Let's see the first clip.
So as we reflect on this, the very first thing that we want to talk about was safe environment. What you're looking at in this particular clip is one of our student residences. It's in the process of being built at this particular phase, and we'll go back and talk about that. But what you're looking at is going to be a chaperone room for 3 chaperones. We want to have 1 chaperone for every 10 kids. And then as we pan through this particular building, we're looking into what will be 2 student residences, bunkhouses if you want, each holding 15 bunk beds, which allow us to put room in there for 60 kids. Among that would be 30 boys and 30 girls. And so we would be able to put that all together. Excuse me for this.
We have people calling about I think they're calling about Camp Teresita. Do you think they are?
You think they are? Who knows?
I think they are. And but we'll talk to them later, because right now we want to talk about another element. Let's see what the next picture shows us and why it's one more value being illustrated for us.
What you see here is the main hall This is the assembly building, and it's going to be for virtual use. You know, right now, because of the way that we are building our project, we want to be able to use this for two purposes. One, for large gatherings of students. This will hold up to 200 people for meals. And to the right is the kitchen, and there where that's panning there now is storage areas and office space behind that wall. But this will also be able to serve a variety of functions for large groups as well as for meals. And there's a stage area as well, both inside and outside. There's an outdoor stage that goes to a plaza that holds up to 300 people on the outside. As you see, as we pan into these walls, you'll notice that there's names of people all over the place. We've invited all of our young people as they come up to take a tour to write their names on the walls, knowing that that's going to be here 100 years from now. Of course, it's going to be behind sheetrock, but they'll be able to tell their grandkids and their great-grandkids about how they were here and participated in the beginning of the process.
And you've had so many help you do this. It's been a cooperative effort, no?
Oh, yes, all the time. People are always coming and making available themselves for different tasks and for different projects that we have.
Now, a third clip, I think, is going to show us something about maximum efficiency and the low maintenance, I think. Let's see what we're looking at here. What do we have here, Monsignor?
What you're looking at is the material that we use to build the youth center. They are foam-insulated giant Lego blocks. We call them Lego blocks for adults. And as you see this particular picture, you see that they come in all sizes and shapes. Basically, there are two panels of 3-inch styrene with webbing in between that fits together with buttons on top and cups on the bottom that make them look like Lego blocks. And then we use those to literally build walls. As we pan in here, you'll see that these are called Logix blocks. There's several materials companies that make these. These are particularly excellent, and they provide us with lots of good things there. So as you look here, you see where all the buildings that we've built are, you know, made out of those blocks. And as you see there now, we're putting on the roof tiles. As a matter of fact, we're building these buildings, you know, all together, starting and working our way out of the facility. And so we're able to get different crews in, and they're working simultaneously.
Nice.
Everything you see here, it started above ground on the 15th of April. Those buildings will be done by the 15th of January, which gives us 2 months in order to work out our furnishings and everything like that and work out our bugs before we start off. And
programs.
Remember we talked a little bit about safe environment.
Oh, yeah.
As you see this and you see where the assembly building is there on the left, now as we're going to take a look, we're going to see into a little village area. We've kind of lined up all of our buildings in such a way that they create a little village, and that village provides a kind of a place for young people, and it separates itself out in terms of its use so that, you know, it provides a kind of a boundary area for young people and for the adults that are working with them. There are two other things that we're going to be adding outside of the youth area. One is a swimming pool and the other is an arts and crafts building. And since those could also be used by adults, we've set them outside of the little village area of the youth so that when adults use them, they don't have to come into the youth area for that.
You know, you've got some wonderful blocks here that you may want to show us.
I brought a sample of the adult Lego blocks, that we call. Actually, they come 4 feet long by 16 inches high, but we cut this one off just to give us a little bit area. So you see that they're all made of 3 inches of styrene with webbing in the middle and little racks in here. The vertical rebar, the steel for the walls, the cement walls, comes out of the footings and up the walls on the inside, and then we lay for each layer horizontal rebar. We pour cement into that, and when it's all done, you have a highly insulated cement wall. This is really effective for keeping us low costs. Believe it or not, the cost for heating and cooling these buildings will be $1 out of the $5 that it costs to heat and cool a conventional building like our home.
Wow.
And the beauty about that is that it keeps our overhead way down and allows us to have young people up there at a very minimal cost. And so when these are full of cement and when the buildings are all built, you end up with what basically is a bunker with windows in there, like a bomb shelter. It cannot be knocked down by an earthquake. You can put direct fire against a wall for 4 hours before any damage is done. And of course we have cement tile roofs, so it cannot be burnt by a fire. And we're pretty sure that it cannot be destroyed by a sophomore in high school.
But that's the one you're not sure about.
Yeah, there'll be a challenge to us all, but these will be great. And then on the outside, I don't know if you can see this, but if you look at this particular one, you'll see some X's going down this thing here.
Yeah.
There's a plastic panel in there that you nail things into. You can either nail or screw into it. So you can either put, if you want to put plaster on the outside walls, stucco, or inside, on the inside of the building, you can use this for sheetrock or for paneling or any kind of thing. Also, if you want to put electricity in there, all you do is put your Romex line right in here. Just cut a whack a little bit there, stick it in there, cut your box in there, and you have your wiring all done for your buildings. It's an amazing product.
It is. Now, tell us a little bit also, you were very excited about the economy of this, that though it is so high-tech and so progressively futuristic, it also is affordable in the way that you purchased it. Tell us about that, financing something that's so well done that way.
We looked at a variety of different materials that we wanted to use, and particularly wanted something that was going to last, something that was going to be efficient, and someone was going to be green. And so we looked at a lot of different possibilities, but chose this because we felt that it gave us the most bang for our buck. And we're really fortunate that our contractor has worked with the Logix company. They actually produce this out of Canada, and they've shipped all the blocks to us from Canada, but they've given us a tremendous discount because they themselves are really excited about what we're doing for young people, and they thought that they would like to be a part of that too.
Isn't that great? That's Jeff Blogg?
Jeff Blogg and Tom Lynch and JB Construction out of Tulare.
Wonderful. To think it's local people. They've been on programs before talking about the future of Santa Teresita, and now it's the present. This is all happening as we speak. We need to take a break at this very moment. They told me that. But don't worry. In 1 minute, we'll be back with Msgr Griesbach, who will tell us more about some of the values that are underlying this wonderful effort at Santa Teresita and about why you will want to become involved in this project. Stay tuned.
Our vision for the future will be right back. Video Appliance Center for their support of our vision for the future. Ventura TV Video Appliance Center, the local choice for brand name appliances and electronics since 1951.
Again, and welcome to the second part of this fantastic program about Santa Teresita Youth Conference Center. It's been many years now that we've been talking about it and letting you know that there is this wonderful priority of the diocese, youth ministry, and that one of those commitments towards youth ministry is to build Santa Teresita Youth Conference Center under Monsignor's direction at St. Anthony Retreat in Three Rivers. It's been a wonderful dream that is coming to reality, the diocesan dream of a youth center for all of us here in the diocese and for youth all across the country. Monsignor, you've got your beautiful site plan. Do you want to tell us anything about that? Or where would you like to begin the second half of the program?
Yeah, maybe I could just direct our attention to the Santa Teresita Youth Conference Center's site plan. What you see is a layout of the property that includes both St. Anthony Retreat Center, this area right here, and where the youth center is being built. This represents actually 17 acres of an initial gift from the Ollie Craig estate, as well as this 8 acres right in here that was a later gift from the Craig estate to us as a green belt, so that we wouldn't have any kind of influence from the outside, or that our activities would not affect people living in the neighborhood.
Great.
So that was what was really nicely done. And if you can see, these are all contour lines. It shows like it's pretty steep along in here. But you notice that when we come up into our roadway, it really flattens out a lot in here. So we wanted to talk a little bit about how this organization and configuration of buildings took place. And primarily what took place was we did a lot of work in the beginning, working out buildings and their functions. And initially we had quite different configurations of buildings, but one of the things that we really wanted to take into account was respect for nature. Part of our Catholic social teaching tells us that nature, like us, is a person with rights to be respected and to be honored. So we worked with our contractor who understands this very much, and we said, let's let the land talk to us and tell us what it had to offer for us. And so we said to the land, we'd like to be able to host 120 kids overnight for a youth center that would really be a blessing to them. And the land said, well, I have 2,400 blue oaks in a magnificent blue oak stand, one of the finest in the state of California.
Wow.
But I have wide open areas too, and I'd like to offer my wide open areas for your buildings.
That's great.
It would mean that we would have to change our floor plans, and so we did. Initially, our gathering spaces had dorm rooms on either side. It was impossible to fit them in the area. So we literally took the meeting rooms off and made them separate. This is a meeting room here and a meeting room here.
Yeah.
Then we took the two wings of the dorms and put them together and made each of these buildings here. These are residences or dorm rooms. And that creates a lovely little quad and a very beautiful little village. And that village is representative of where those open places were. Of the 2,400 oak trees, we took 31 of them out in order to 1/10 of 1%.
That's
all the roadways,
great.
Everything, we worked around them so that we would be able to avoid them.
I mean, I got to congratulate you because I was really wondering if that was going to be such a priority that you would be able. Sometimes you for all the goodwill, destroy things and building things. You evidently really were blessed on not doing that.
Yeah, and not only, listen to this. Once we had those floor plans designed, it saved us $170,000 from the cost to build them. So actually, Mother Nature gave us a gift back of $170,000 too.
Now, speaking of Mother Nature, we've got another clip that we might be able to show that is something you could walk us through, Monsignor. What are we seeing here up at Santa Teresita?
Well, let's take a look here. Here we go. What you're looking at is the road that comes into the youth center itself. Notice that there's 2 lanes there. That's because those trees were too close together to be able to meet the requirements for emergency vehicles. So rather than cut one or other of them down, we just literally split the road and went between them. It was part of the thing that we did in order to protect the environment. As we pan around here, and you're seeing the site where the Arts and Crafts building will be, notice that there's ancient trees there, 200 years old, and a whole bunch of other ones in between. And now as we move through, you begin to see how we've built our buildings, including the assembly building there, right in the middle of the forest, and we kept the trees that were all around there. Jeez. And now we're going to continue to pan around, and we're going to take a look at what that green belt looks like on the other side of the construction site. And as you can see, those are some of the beautiful blue oaks and their stands that are there. And quite often when you're standing here and you're looking out, you see a deer run across there, or maybe a coyote. Off in the distance, the branches that we used from the trees that did cut down, we've used as habitat for quail, a couple quail hotels. And you know what? There's no vacancy anymore right there. They're everywhere over there.
It's beautiful to think how you've preserved something that is really beautiful, but then you've also made it possible, as you say, for 120 youth to come up and spend a good chunk of time, a weekend, a week, what? How long might youth be there?
We can do anything from day use, using for the day. In fact, our first day use as a kind of a shakedown tour is going to be on the 18th of February when we bring 150 kids from Visalia up there for confirmation retreat.
Wonderful. That's the first one.
And that's the first one. But we'll be able to host young people overnight. And since we have both of these dorms, each of holding 60 kids, we could literally have 2 different groups up there, each with their own meeting rooms, so that they can, have their own space and use the assembly building for their meals. And so we have the possibility of having quite a few different people using it at the same time. It's part of the versatility of the youth center.
Speaking of the 2 people, you've got the adult center and the youth center. Why don't we show that last clip that I think really wants to make a point about preserving both environments integrally. So let's see if we could see that last clip that you might
What we're going to do is see from across the way along our service road the assembly building and some of the other buildings that are being built. And you see some water tanks there, by the way. Notice that there are 8 of those built back into the hillside there. Each of those hold 15,000 gallons of water, and they'll provide water for both centers. Now, if you look down the access road there and you look off to the distance, you see a couple darker trees and some palm trees sticking up. That's where the adult center is. So as you come up that road, you realize we're still about a quarter mile away. And the idea would be that that distance plus the way we've utilized our buildings will be a sound barrier that will help to keep the sound that for the youth center down to maintain that nice environment at the adult center as well. If you want to take a look here, you can kind of see that layout here on our site plan. You see the distance between this center here, which is the adult center, and the youth center. That's about a quarter mile, not quite a quarter mile. Also up here in this hillside here is where our amphitheater is going to be. It's in a natural berm, and so that wall of land there actually serves as a sound buffer for our adult center too, and it sends all the noise going off that direction. So it's a way of helping us to maintain the environment of the adult center and still giving kids opportunity to be kids.
You know, I think we have to put Monsignor's contact information up so that if anybody has watched this program and wants to be in touch with Monsignor and the wonderful project of St. Anthony Retreat Center and Santa Teresita Youth Conference Center, there's the way you'd reach him and the staff, the wonderful staff. Speaking of which, next week on our program, Vince Olea is going to be sharing more about Santa Teresita, but not about the geography and the history and not even about the philosophy, but rather about the programs and the mission and the vision that he is going to be directing with youth, as Monsignor said, beginning early next year. We are so glad that Monsignor is here with us today to share it. We hope you'll go up and visit the center soon. Till next time, God bless.